I almost didn't make this video because I did what I promised myself I would never do on this YouTube journey. I got in my head, I started overthinking, got really overwhelmed, shut down, and in a way to avoid making this particular video, I pivoted. And that's when I started the Heart to Heart series and I interviewed our family members. Well, I only have 4 family members and I made the 4 videos. So now it's time to come back and to work on this chapter about Laurel Place, the inpatient rehabilitation center that we were at after the hospital. Now, I struggled so much with this video. I've been on YouTube for almost 2 months and I made about 8 or 9 videos so far. But I've spent more time just recording this one video than all 8 or 9 videos combined. Now, why am I having such a hard time with this? I think it's for 2 reasons. The first one is Laurel Place was such a special place for our family, and I didn't want to cheapen the experience or the memory of our experience there with my unorganized thoughts and my subpar video. The next reason is this. I started thinking about who is this video for, and is it relevant to the people who watch these videos now? But I remember that time when we were waiting and hoping and praying to get into Laurel Place. I had no idea what to expect. So I went online to try to find something, anything that would help prepare me for this next leg of our journey. But there was nothing. I couldn't find any information or any photos or any videos. Now on YouTube, I found that they had made a video, an introductory video to the Laurel Place Care Centre as a whole, and it was beautifully done. But still to this day, I can't find any information about the actual rehab unit. So please, if anyone in Fraser Health is watching this, can you please make an introductory video about this? Because right now, all we have is this video right now. It's Saturday morning. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, which I don't normally do on a weekend. But I had a deep sense of urgency to just sit down, push record, and get this video out there. Because there is a family out there in the Lower Mainland who is waiting to get their loved one into Laurel Place. And I hope that this video reaches you. And if it does, could you please comment below? Because that would just make my day and make all of this so worth it. And if you have any personal experience at Laurel Place yourself or a loved one, could you please comment that below as well? We really need to expand the online presence of Laurel Place so that more people in our community will have access to more information. Again, I woke up at 4:30. I came down at 5 o'clock. I set everything up. And the first time I hit record, it was 5:07. And right now it's 7:22. And I'm still here trying to get this video out. I kept starting and stopping and starting and stopping, but you know what? I'm just gonna get it out. Do it in one take. Doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be perfect. I just need to get this information out there for that one family who needs to hear this right now. So I have my coffee and let's just do this. Okay, Laurel Place. It's located in the heart of downtown Surrey, just down the street from Surrey Memorial Hospital. It's a simple 4-story building. The main part of the building is dedicated to long-term care. There's also a hospice in the building as well too. But on the 4th floor, you're going to find the inpatient, it's actually called the Sub-Acute Inpatient Rehabilitation Unit. Now that's a mouthful, but we just call it rehab. Now, one thing that's important to note about Laurel Place is the security. All the doors and the gates and even the elevators have locks to it, and that's for the safety and security of the people who are in the long-term care. But once you go in and sign in, they will help you and they will show you how to get through those doors. Now, when you go up to the 4th floor, that's where you're going to find the rehab. And just sitting here thinking about it, talking about it, I can still remember it so vividly. Even the scent of the place is coming back to me. Now, there's a combination of private and semi-private rooms. Joshua was in a semi-private room, but you know what? We were just so happy to be there. We didn't care. It was totally fine. The rooms are very spacious and very clean. And there's actually like a wall that divides the 2 patient beds. So we felt that we had enough privacy. Plus, Joshua's roommate was very quiet, so he got a lot of rest at night as well too. What I really liked about Laurel Place is how simple and well organized and very intentional they are about everything that they do. So right outside the nurse's station, there's a big board and it has all of the patients' names and their schedule for the day. One thing that you need to be prepared for when you go is it's hard work. So you have to be prepared for that. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have to expect to put in the work. On the weekends, you get some time off. But this was so good for us. And because this is what Joshua really needed at that time. And for me and my kids, it gave us so much hope. And we were so excited when we saw that schedule and we saw how intense the program was. We were like, okay, this is it. We're no longer in survival mode. We are in full-on recovery mode. We've got this. It's not a vacation. I know that some of the photos here look like we're on vacation, but we're definitely not. It was hard work. We were there to work, to reclaim, to restore everything that this stroke tried to take away from us. In addition to this schedule that was posted on the board, the nurses would prepare his personalized schedule on a piece of paper and bring it to him so that he can see what he's supposed to do. This was so helpful for us. So Joshua would take a picture of that schedule with his cell phone and he would text it to me. Now, I was at work during the day and I could only go and visit him first thing in the morning before work or in the evening after work. So this was so helpful for me to know what he was doing in the day. And also for visitors, if visitors wanted to go and visit him, then I could tell them when he had a break. Now, his day was packed with speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. But in addition to those one-on-one sessions with the therapist, he had a lot of homework to do as well too. So for example, in the beginning, the speech therapist would assign him a worksheet where he had to practice writing his name or writing the date or writing our kids' names. She also assigned him an iPad where he had to go on into the app and just practice with some vocabulary and listening and speaking. So he had specific homework that he needed to do before the next session. So there wasn't a lot of downtime. Another thing that's really important for stroke survivors is rest. Their brains need rest. They are working overtime to try to do even simple tasks. So whenever he wasn't in therapy or he wasn't eating a meal or he wasn't working on his homework, he was sleeping and he was trying to rest his brain to get ready for the next activity. Now, meal times. First of all, the food, I didn't try it, but it looked really good and Joshua really liked it as well too. Right in front of the dining hall, they posted the daily menu. Now, this was really helpful as well too, because if I asked Joshua, how was your lunch? What did you eat for lunch? He wasn't able to answer. He couldn't tell me what he ate. But because I knew what was on the menu, then I could ask him, did you have soup today? Did you like the chicken soup? Or I can ask him, did you have soup or did you have salad? Because I knew what was on the menu. So again, with aphasia, if you ask an open-ended question such as, what did you eat for lunch? He was not able to answer. But if I gave him two options, such as, did you have rice or did you have potatoes? It would take him a while for him to register what those words meant, but he was able to push out the word. All the meals are served in the dining room, and there are set times for that. So for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, he doesn't eat them in his room. He had to go out and eat in a designated spot. So he was assigned a table and a seat, and that's where he was to go and eat all of his meals. Now, even that is very intentional. It's so that the stroke survivors can build community and build a support network. And this, it may seem like a little thing, but it's such a big thing to know that, we're not alone. We're not doing this alone, but we have each other to rely on. Now, Joshua's table mate, or the person he shared the table with, was just the sweetest man. His name was Harold. He was a lot older. I think he was in his 80s, maybe at the very most his 90s. He had no trouble with speech. So when they ate together, Harold would mostly talk and Joshua would listen. But he did have mobility issues. So he was in a wheelchair for most of the time, or sometimes he could use a walker for short distances. So after their meals, Joshua would help Harold walk over to his room and help him get settled before he went back to his room. And one day I got to see this, and it warmed my heart, and it made me so thankful. So I was waiting in Joshua's room, waiting for him to finish his meal and come back. And then I heard him laughing, and I heard him say, "Good job, good job." And so I went out to see, and then I see Harold walking very, very slowly down the hall, pushing his walker, and Joshua was beside him, walking beside him. And then he walked Harold to his room, and he stood there by the door and waited for Harold to get on his bed. And once he was well settled, I saw Joshua do this and say, "Good, good." And then I think Harold said, "Yeah, I'm all good." And then Joshua came back to his room. So just seeing little things like that was such a gift to me. And even now, as I talk about it a year later, I just get so emotional because we have so many stories about little things like that happened during that time, which gave us so much hope and excitement and just so much grace that we needed during that day. But okay, hold on a second. Okay, so that's the schedule, and that's the meal times in the dining hall. They even have a really pretty patio as well too. So whenever we were there, we would sign him out at the nurse's desk and take him down to the patio in a wheelchair just so that he can get some fresh air. The whole place, like even the dining room, there's a lot of windows and a lot of natural light comes in. So it's just a really peaceful and just a very, very pretty place. Let me talk about his team. So I can't say enough about the staff and the team at Laurel Place. They're superheroes. They're just so good at what they do. And they are just inherently such good people. And they don't see the patients as just patients. They work together as a team. They get to know the families. They communicate so well with the families because they want to get to know the person and figure out what will help that patient get better. So they ask a lot about, what does Joshua like to do? What are his hobbies? What are his interests? And they tap into that to get him speaking. And they tap into that as they come up with his physical therapy plan or his occupational therapy plan. So he had the best of the best team. He had, you know, the best SLP and the OT and the PT. He also had a recreational therapist, and I'm going to talk more about that later. And we didn't really spend that much time with the recreational therapist. I didn't even know that was a thing. But at that particular moment, that wasn't that important to me. It became very important later when we were in outpatient rehab, and I will talk about that again. But for our particular situation at that point in time, we didn't really benefit from the recreational therapist at that time, but she was wonderful. She was so kind, and she spent a lot of time talking to me and talking to Jennifer, and it was helpful to get us thinking about after he leaves this place. What can we do at home? What can he do in the community for some recreational therapy? So it is very, very important. But for us at that time, it was all about SLP, OT, and PT. Now, there was also a social worker. The social worker is critical at this time because after this, you go home. And so you really need to get organized and talk to the social worker about, what do I do now? How can you help me? And that relationship and the conversations with the social worker are very important. And I will talk about that in the next video because I think that's really important. They like to get the family involved in therapy as much as possible. Now, when I wasn't there, when I was at work, the therapists would call me and give me an update on what they've been doing, how he's been doing, and what the plan is going forward. So I am so thankful for that up-to-date, that candid, detailed communication. It was so helpful for me and very much appreciated. So one day I took a day off, and I wanted to spend the entire day there so that I can see what he does and just get involved with the therapy and get to know the therapist more on a personal level. And they got me really involved as well too. Like, in the first speech session that I attended, not only did she invite me to sit down and observe, but she got me to participate because it was really important that we continue this therapy at home with the family. So she taught me some skills, what to look out for, how I can start to communicate with him. So I learned a lot during that one session. Even during OT, I got to see what an OT actually does. I never knew what OTs do, but now I got to see firsthand, and that was really cool too, to learn what he didn't know. And that was hard to uncover because of the aphasia. But it was just really cool to see, he has that skill. That skill is still there. This one, yeah, it's not quite there. But it gave me an idea as to what we needed to work on at home. And even the physical therapy, they got me involved as well too. And we just had such a great day doing that. And on Friday afternoons, I don't know if they do this every day, but it was a Friday that I was there. They had like a dance party, and they said, Esther, Joshua, are you ready to dance? And we're like, yeah, okay, we're in. And I thought we were actually going to have a dance party, but they pushed aside all the chairs and tables in the dining room. We made a big circle, and people who didn't need wheelchairs sat in regular chairs. But, there were a lot of people who had wheelchairs, and they turned on this music, and they just turned it on really loud. And we just started moving and exercising. And that was our dance party. But I remember sitting there, and I don't remember if I was crying or not. Probably, because I cried so much during that time. But I remember thinking, man, what a privilege it is for me to be around these stroke survivors. And they are the strongest people I've ever had the privilege of spending a Friday afternoon with. And some of them couldn't, lift their arm, but even if they lifted it a little bit, they did what they could. And I remember one of the songs that was playing was "I Will Survive." And I think that's where I felt, okay, this is it. This is good. This is good. This is what we need. And I was just so thankful to be a part of that. Weekends. I mentioned that on the weekends, there's a break from rehab. This was really important, and this was so good for us, is that they encourage the patients to go home if they can on the weekends, if there's care available at home. And we did that twice, and I was terrified and excited. I think Joshua was more excited to go home for the weekend. So the reason that they do this is to help prepare you for eventual discharge and transitioning into the home. So it gives you a little taste of what to expect, and it also helps identify what you need and to prepare for the actual discharge, and what were the challenges, what was easy, what was difficult, what plans or I'm trying to think of the word, what plans or what systems do we need to set into place to help with that transition. So with the weekend passes, it has to be for 2 nights. They won't let you go for just 1 night. I'm not sure about the reason for that, but I'm sure because they're so intentional with what they do, I'm sure there was a reason for that. So we went home for Friday night, Saturday night, and then I had to send him back on Saturday. So even with the medication, they give you the specific medication that he needs and the times that he needs to take them. And I also had a form that I needed to fill out, such as what did he do while he was at home? What were some of the daily activities? But more importantly, what are the challenges that you faced with him having at home? So I needed to fill all that out. And when we went back to return on Sunday, I had to talk to the nurses about what was challenging and so forth. So it's a little thing. Well, actually, it's not a little thing. It's a really significant part of their process. But it was so helpful for us. And I remember the first day that Joshua came home, we didn't even know that we could bring him home that afternoon. So we were so unprepared. And I think I remember I just texted the kids and I said, we're coming home for the weekend. And they're like, what? Are you kidding? We came home and Joshua was so happy to be home. And the first thing he wanted to do was to take a shower. And so I was so nervous about helping him into the shower. I didn't know what sort of help he needed. But I stood right outside the shower door just so that I'm right there within arm's reach. He was so happy when he was in that shower, and he just started like yelling in a happy way. But it reminded me of Shawshank Redemption. I talked about this before. It's one of my favorite movies. But when the main character, when he finally broke out of prison and it was raining, it was pouring rain, and he got out there and, he just looked up and the water is just hitting his face and he just yelled. It reminded me so much of that scene, but I'm sure Joshua would tell you it was the best shower he ever had. After that, we went to go get a haircut because he wanted to get a haircut, and he felt so much better after that. And the rest of the weekend was just slow, simple family time. We went for a few walks, and I had to jot down on the paper what was challenging, and there were a lot of challenges that made me so scared about bringing him home, little things. And I felt like I needed to watch him like a hawk. So I remember that weekend, all the kids were home. They were home, and we took turns just following him around the house, making sure that, he didn't fall, that his balance was good, that he didn't touch anything he wasn't supposed to, and basically that he wouldn't hurt himself. But it was a really, really, really good weekend, and we did that twice. I think I'm going to stop here. I will, in the next chapter, I will talk about discharge and more practical tips for caregivers and what you need to do and how you need to get organized for eventual discharge. But I just wanted to share our experiences at Laurel Place, and we still drive by there every week. Our church is just a couple of blocks away from there. So every time I drive by, I always look over and I just smile, and just so thankful for our experience and for our time there. It really was such an incredible place for us. And the day that he was admitted to Laurel Place, it was a Friday afternoon. That night, Friday night, I slept for the first time since his stroke. I slept 9 hours. I slept like a baby because I had so much peace knowing that this is where he needed to be at that time. So if you made it to the end, I thank you for sticking with me. I know it wasn't very organized. I know I rambled a lot. I know I'm rambling right now. But for anyone who has experienced or are currently experiencing or are waiting to experience Laurel Place, I wish you all the best. And I hope that this will be a place of hope and peace and joy for your family as much as it was for us. Thank you.